So once we get our color wheels kind of filled in and a chance to refreshen our water, I'll do a demo next talking about complementary colors and values. So right now we've looked at the color wheel, which is a variety of hues, meaning a variety of different colors, and we'll talk about values, which are the lights and the dark qualities of the colors that are out there. So after you get wrapped up in your color wheel, look at the color sheet that I had for you guys. The black and white sheet talks a little bit about this. And so as I describe through what I'm going to be doing right now, you can look back on your sheet and notice the stuff going on here. This was produced by Bob Burridge. Robert Burridge is a wonderful teacher. He's like me on 10 cups of coffee. And he does a lot of YouTubes as well. And he's got a great website and something that he and his wife produce on a monthly basis, almost monthly basis, called the Artsy Fartsy Newsletter. And he's got great ideas. He's a wonderful gentleman, and I've taken classes from him over the years. So, given that he did the first step, I just want to repeat it. When you think about value, it's a black and white. You can have a medium on medium painting, and it's the truth, but it's like really kind of boring. So let's say you go out to the garage, you open up the garage door, you find the baseball sitting on the garage floor. The truth is, yes, everything on this half of the garage got light. The floor got light, the ball got light, the wall got light. It's okay, it's the truth. But if we were to go out there with a little bit of drama, leave the door closed and just take our flashlight and go look for that subject matter. We're lighting our subject so that it's just light on one spot. The whole back wall stays dark because we're just lighting the ball. It creates a lovely dark shadow. So we have here some drama. We have light on dark. Our backside is dark on light. This is the same thing that the Italians discovered in the 14th century or something called chiaroscuro lighting. It's chiaroscuro is Italian for light, dark. And so therefore, another one of Bob's paintings is, there are people. All of Rembrandt's paintings had light heads with dark background, and if you get down to the bottom of their outfits, the outfits got darker against the lighter background. You can do the same thing with bouquets of flowers. You can do it with pretty much darn near everything. This is an extreme value change, pretty much just black and white. But by adding a little bit of drama to your pieces, it gives it some excitement. So even though we've got complementary colors helping each other look good, we also need to be aware of, gee, I like my painting, but it's just kind of boring. If you squint your eyes and you can't see a great big value change between light and dark, then it's going to kind of look flat. So those are ways that if you find you like my paintings, why does her painting look so cool? There's always a dramatic light source to make something light against the dark. Okay, so those are the reasons why. With your chalk that you guys have on your tables, you're going to take and create something, and I would prefer a pear or something simple. If the pear totally distraughts you, I do have other pictures of other items up here, so there are reference photographs at your table of the pears. But I would like you to take your chalk, which dissolves into paint as you paint, so you won't have a line to deal with. You notice that the pencil lines still show through some of your paint. It's frustrating when you've got a dark line that you can't get rid of. The red chalk usually dissolves into the paint as you're painting along. There are just instances where it doesn't. I think if you leave it on your palette for a month at a time or on the board, it soaks into the board. So yes, you can see the previous pear from last week's assignment. Everything in the world can be pretty much broken down into the four basic shapes: a cone, a cylinder, a cube, or a column. So I'm going to take my pear and say, in its simplest form, it's a ball with a little jack-in-the-box hat on it. Oh, I can draw the stem in now if I want to, but we won't worry about that till later on. And then if I put my horizon line down about the third line, it makes it interesting. Try not to line things up in your painting right here. That kind of says to the viewer, you're so stupid I have to tell you where to look. If you divide it into thirds, it's kind of a little bit of that, irreverent child saying, I'll follow the rules, but I'm going to follow my way. Dividing and putting things on the thirds helps make it more interesting. So if you can get your horizon line down about the third or up at the third, it's more interesting than the photograph that has the horizon line right at the halfway point. So those are the kind of sweet spots that I like to play around with, and we'll talk a little bit about composition tomorrow. But today, mostly our pear is going to be a ball, a little cone on top of it, and my horizon line is going to be back down here about the third. And then my shadow's gonna come directly out from my subject matter. If light were coming and hitting here, its shadow might come as far as here. But that's pretty much all I want you guys to introduce as far as your shadow. Now, if you have a pear and you're looking down on it and it's got a nice strong light source of the shadow, yes, you get to see the shape of the pear on the table. But most of the time, we're more at table height ourselves, so I'd like you to just do a smaller shadow today. My goal today is to get you to see lights and darks and the value contrast. So the colors aren't so much tremendously important. And also, I had you guys start out on a colored surface. Yours is not quite as dark as I would like it to have been. I would have liked it to be a little like this. If you're doing a painting, to make it interesting, you pretty much have to have a medium value in CAD red, and I know it doesn't sound like it. If you were to make a black and white copy of CAD red, it's a 50% value. So that's what light or medium would look like. Here's light, and here's dark. You don't want too dark. So having a dark, a medium, and a light in a painting is a basic skeleton framework that you really do need to have to make it interesting. So as we paint this piece of artwork today, we're going to be thinking about lights and darks. Acrylics dry so fast that literally you can't get them off because they've dried so quickly, especially on sunny days. I have found acrylics that dry so fast are some of the problems that beginning students have. They're chasing hard edges throughout the whole painting. If you were to dampen out your surface and yourself, it helps. You get a slightly larger brush. So I'm going to jump in right now and just say I want some drama. If your surface is wet, your paint slides on nice and fast. Have you ever taken a paint roller, you loaded it up with paint, you put it on the wall, and it slides, and then about the fourth stroke it starts to, and it's like, it's literally pulling paint off the wall. At that point, you're not applying the paint, you're pulling it back off the wall. By having a slightly damp surface, you can get the paint on there quicker, smoother, faster. You can use your fingers, and the best part about acrylic paints that have gone onto a wet surface is, if you didn't like what's there, you can get it off before it's dry. So that's the best part about starting on a slightly damp surface.
Even on the paper you can get it?
Not on straight paper. If it's a gessoed surface that's sealed and the color does not sink down into the actual fibers itself, yes. So when I say slightly damp, I don't mean drippy wet damp. Nothing will stay on your palette at that point. So be aware as you do this, oh, I have a puddle. Okay, a little too much water. You shouldn't have a puddle. Get in there with your paper towel and dry it off. I have taken and divided up the standard paper towel into quarters so that I hopefully don't feel so bad about throwing away trees. But also, it's really hard when you have an entire huge paper towel and you're trying to get in there and do detail work here and you don't realize that this guy, oh, accidentally got there, and you're over here painting away with your paper towel thinking you fixed some little point right over there. And you're like, oh. So the smaller the piece of paper, the better your chances of not messing it up too bad. So a slightly damp surface helps, one, the paint go on faster, smoother, and I'm going to get it just slightly damp so that you can maybe see from where you're at. You get softer edges. The first layer of an acrylic painting works easy if you get soft edges established up front. That way later on, when it's completely dry, you have a chance to come in and slightly blend some other colors in with it. If you've got hard edges everywhere you go in your painting, it draws your eye. Hard edges draw the eye. So I want you to experiment today and be okay with having some softer edges, because then I can always come back in later on and blend into those softer edges. Even though they're completely dry, I could come in with my pear color and, you know, get a softer edge going so that it looks softer and instead of hard edge. So be aware as you paint today about soft edges. So starting on a wet surface helps. So we put the background in. So we've got to just pretend I didn't do the white for the time being. So you have your dark. You go from all the way dark to medium, dark, all the way to, if you can, see if you can get pretty darn light over here on this back side. So we're trying to recreate that same look we got with our wall. Dark to light on the background. Don't worry about the edges back there. In fact, it's better if they're soft, glossed, not found too much. Back to dark. Okay, so there's your dark. I bet you its shadow is somewhat dark as well. I'm choosing two complementary colors for the time being just because they'll make each other look good. I could put a blue pear on a purple background on a green table, but it's going to be all these colors on one side. That's called analogous, when they're all connected together on one side. So these are cold ones, and those are warm ones, but they're all analogous, they're side by side. If you go across the wheel and gather its complementary color, you'll add more excitement. It will look more, wow, look at that color, as opposed to the blue pear on the purple background on the pink tablecloth. So we get our pear in here. I might make a yellow pear. Yellow pear. Wow, I got a yellow pear on a purple background. I've got yellow, I've got yellow, I got yellow, I got yellow everywhere, and my yellow pear looks flat because it's yellow from one side to the other. If you were to add some light value to your pear, about 1/3 of the way in, that helps say that it's round, as well as the complement of yellow is purple. If we were to mix a little bit of purple into that yellow background, that neutralizes the yellow. There we go. And makes it look like it's literally got volume to it. You are literally a magician and musician as well. Magician in your capabilities of describing and making something look three-dimensional. So 1/3 of the way in is where the lightest of lights would be, and about 1/3 of the way in would be where the darkest darks are. Usually, as light hits subject matters and bounces back up, there's something known as reflected light. There'd be just a slightly lighter value on the back edge of something. So when you look at your pear, you got the colors going down. Why does it look flat? Does it have light and dark values? How do I get the darker value of my color? You go and mix a little bit of its complement in. So if you've got an orange pear, you're going to mix a little bit of blue into it. If you've got a green pear, you'd mix a little red. So that's how you get that neutralized grayish color that creates a neutralized version of your main color. So depending on what colors you want to use today, that's how you would tackle it. So the first layer is just getting stuff in softly suggested. Most of my paintings are 2 to 3 layers.
So do you always gesso the surface in acrylic?
And on top of that, the surface that you guys are painting on is actually not even regular old gesso, and I'll talk about that as well. But yes, most of the time, if you try to paint onto I'm going to go a little bit darker green for the shadow, just to say. Okay, the soccer boys are now running in the door. I have to go feed 25 soccer boys. I'll be back in 20 minutes. My painting will be completely dry, and I can paint over the top of it again with a second layer. So that you don't have to get it perfect the first time through. It doesn't matter if it's a mess like this. It's okay. The surfaces that you guys are painting on right now, this is your standard canvas gessoed surface. It has to be mounted to a board. It has just strictly gesso on it. I wet out the surface, sprinkled water, had fun with it, but because the texture of the canvas is already giving you a little bit of a grid pattern, and the gesso itself is such a hard surface. Gesso is nothing more than ground up gypsum boards, the same thing drywall boards are made out of. That gypsum gives tooth to the surface that paint can hang on to it, but it's a fairly hard surface. And I have found that if I want colors to float and dissolve and sink down into the surface and not just become a great big muddle of pud right here, that puddle looks great in some instances, but sometimes it can just blend into and make nothing but an ugly brown. Whereas, wow, I got, my purples and oranges mixed up in here and they kind of stayed where they were at. This is modeling paste. It has the texture of watercolor paper added to an acrylic background. So golden makes it, it's called molding paste, excuse me. The molding pastes literally have a watercolor texture. So the textures I got you guys on right now, it's a plasticized surface, but it has some absorbency, a lot like a watercolor paper. And it doesn't have this hard finish.
So you don't put that on top of the gesso?
I actually do.
You do?
So at this point, whether I buy just flat boards, gesso boards, or anything I get my hands on, I do smear a layer of the molding paste on top of everything. So I'm going to hand these around so you guys can see the differences in what the textures.
So it's not mixed in with the gesso, it's just on top of it.
It's separate. And gesso is a wonderful product, and at this point, only because I came from a watercolor background and I like the happy accidents and the cool things that happen with watercolor, I found I like the molding paste texture to work on. Yes, if I were just doing straight little brush strokes and I didn't care about wet into wet techniques, I could get by with just a gesso background. So as a beginning painting artist, if you just go out, buy some canvases that are pre-gessoed and paint directly on them for the time being, you have a great learning experience. As you work into it later on, you like the wet into, or if you come from a watercolor background and you like the happy accidents that occur in watercolor, that's where this surface comes in handy for me.
If I'm gonna gesso like masonite and stuff that I just steal from my husband,
Yep.
do I need to do it on the back too?
I don't think so. I think masonite's one of those surfaces that's
It won't,
warp
make one
or
side
moisture.
warp.
A masonite won't. Now, foam core will. Foam core is paper on one side with plastic foam in the middle. Masonite is ground up wood product. So let's say, okay, my pear is dry, I'm done, I came back, I fed the soccer boys, okay, my second layer. Oh, I really made a mess, I wish I'd have fixed it in the first phase. Two different things. You can start all the way over again, dampen out that surface. And say, wow, I really, really wanted something darker over here. I can get my darker, and wow, I can cut in right now and actually get a hard edge if I wanted one. I'm just gonna add a little white to it to get so that you have a value change. Okay, I came in and I got a value change going on. At least I wasn't stuck with what was there to begin with. Because I'm up right now, the water wants to dribble down, so we're gonna have that issue for a moment. If you're painting flat today, it's a great exercise for this pear. Just go ahead and paint it flat. Don't paint it upright unless you really want to. At this point, you can see that, gee, if it's all wet, it's just going to keep dribbling all the way down there. So I'm going to be sitting here fighting the dribbles the whole time through. This is a great technique if you're trying to, I have a lady around here dancing in the rain. Where did I put her? Oh. She's on right in front of you, Carla, with a sponge on top of her. So this is a great technique if you're looking for rainy days. So this was the first step in establishing a gal running in the rain. Let it drip. It gives you the effect of a rainy day without having to do a lot of work. That's the first step. I would then re-wet that board out, come in and carve into her and make her harder edges be more important where I need them to be, or change them and say, I really wanted to say there was a super bright, fat yellow pear. I didn't like the orange that was down there. You can come in and soften with your finger. You can make it darker. If you didn't like the color that was there, it's like, I really didn't like that yellow pear. I'm now going to go put my glasses on. I can see where I'm going for. I wanted a red pear instead. My red pear looks really, really good right now because he's on a green tablecloth. Complementary color, that kind of works too. So it doesn't matter, the background doesn't have to be the complementary color. Oh, but I really didn't like that green. I really like, pinks and purples. I just want to keep doing pinks and purples and reds, and you get to the point where all of a sudden you have a red pear on a red tablecloth. How come this doesn't look all that interesting? Because you're looking at, two colors right next to each other on the table. So be aware of, well, I don't understand what's wrong with my painting. I have a red background and a red pear on a red tablecloth. It all blends in together. Then maybe your pear needs to be green. If the whole, your choice. You got 2/3 of a painting that's kind of one color. If you kind of say, I just don't know what to fix, fix the smallest amount of painting you would have to do. Change the, a little bit to green. Okay. You know, so there's no right or wrong. There's literally, everybody's got different styles. You might like to sit there and paint every little thing on it, and that's cool too. If you love painting little freckles on stuff, fine. If you don't want to paint the freckles on, but you still want to have that effect, you can fling paint. You can use squiggly little lines and have fun and give yourself a stem later on. Or if you're really silly, where is the little texturing paint? Highly technical, very expensive tool. I had to go, to the store and get you guys. Pears that have texture kind of have. Oh, I like that. No, I don't like that. I don't like any of that. Okay, we're gonna go down to the ground now. So, camera guys, we go down to the ground here. And if you guys want to scooch a little closer, come on closer. If you were to get rubbing alcohol on a completely kind of wet surface, oh, it's probably going to be too thick, wouldn't you know? Okay. Okay, so in the thin watercolory areas, the alcohol pushed the paint away. Where it was super thick paint, even though it was wet, it was just too thick, the alcohol was not strong enough to move the paint away. Let me see if I can just get a big old something here to show up. So alcohol pushes the water away and gives you these kind of what I call leopard spots, kind of a look. Be aware of having fun, playing with your textures, enjoying it, but if you have texture, get a little bit too busy. Maybe we'll just put texture on the pear and maybe the table and not everywhere else. This is kind of a great texture for the pears. It probably is too busy for a background. So there's no right or wrong, but I would like you to just be aware of your lights and your darks today so that you know that the light half of your pear needs to be on this side, the darker on that side, and if you can make your background go from dark to light, it adds some interest. So this will be the first, get the first layer down, just get it blocked in, and then let's let it be, go have a little lunch break, and then we'll come back and start playing around with the fun textures and splatters and all that kind of stuff after you've let it dry completely during lunch. Alrighty? So as we go back to your tables, I'll step with you through our exercise. I have this highly technical folding visual aid. So we will go through each of these steps on the visual aid. So get your chalk out and your orange board. And we're going to draw. Did everybody get a red chalk? Or a pencil? I'm going to give you back your texturing thing here for you as well. And if you have the piece of paper in front of you that has the light and the dark value of the ball, that helps remind you what side of the ball. So we're going to draw a circle on the bottom half of our orange paper. That's a fairly large circle.
have that one.
You got a $20 canvas, paint a $20 pear on it. Don't stick a $5 pear on that $20 canvas. So, nice great big circle down there, somewhere kind of in the third department. Stick the Jack-in-the-Box hat on top of it. You can tilt it to one side if you want to. That adds a little drama. If you got it straight up and down, it has a little bit of a soldier effect. So, pears are the only fruit that is about as close to the human shape as out there. Do you notice those pears have got love handles on them? They got one side does not match the other. So be aware of the samples and there's extra photograph on your table for you to get excited about other versions of pears. So you got the ball, you got the cone. Put your horizon line about 1/3 of the way up from the bottom. The second part is, give yourself a little notation that your lightest of lights is going to be about 1/3 of the way in, and your darkest of darks is going to be coming in 1/3 of the way on that other side. So just make a little note with your chalk. If you need you to say 1/3 of the way in is my lightest lights, and then be sure to drop in your shadow as it just kind of goes horizontally in a stripe of some form off the edge. So there's your kind of sort of basic drawing shape. And add some love handles and some shape to your pear and make it not match on both sides if you